It is a beautiful September day, and I'm talking to Ethan Forman from the Gloucester Times, as we do every week. Hi, Ethan. How are you?
Hey Heather, how you doing?
Good. I'm good. It's a beautiful day out there.
Gorgeous,
Yeah,
gorgeous.
yeah. This is what Cape Ann was made for. So, the master plan. The mayor has some ideas about that, right?
Yeah, well, this whole discussion of it's called Plan 2000. It was done about 22 years ago. Now, I haven't read it, but it's the city's master plan, how they want to develop, where things go, where should they go, what do you want to see? It's a roadmap,
Mhm.
and it uses a lot of public input for the city to get that. So citizens participate. So if something is built somewhere, people can say, hey, we had some input on that.
Mhm.
So this whole discussion about what they're calling a comprehensive planning initiative, they've given it the new title of CPI, Consumer Price Index, but comprehensive planning initiative, sprung out of the process for the MBTA communities, which are required to create a family-friendly, multifamily zoning district within a half mile of well, in this case, in Gloucester, a commuter rail station.
Mhm.
So that was a discussion before the council.
So, can I just summarize this so I understand it?
Oh yeah,
So, there's the thing called
it's
the
it's
master
it, this is fun stuff. This is called
plan, right?
this is zoning law 40A section 48 section 3. I don't know. It's like,
Yeah, it's almost as exciting as piping
so
plovers,
let
but
me
we'll get
I'll
to
give you
that.
a little, like, a little backup. So
Okay.
during the pandemic,
Yes.
state passed a law. No one was watching, maybe as close as we should have,
Yeah.
to create multifamily housing districts around in MBTA communities. In other words, let's walk to work and walk to the train
Right.
and have these communities which have the T sort of share that burden of having
So the
housing.
workforce has much more accessibility to public transportation, and we are moving people around to work that way. And it's actually communities, which involves families can live in these places too, right?
Yeah, family friendly zoning, because a lot of times it's like over senior housing or studio apartments.
Right.
That's what often what so
And wait, how many of these communities are there, Ethan?
are
Like
you gonna
there's
put me on the
Gloucester,
spot?
there's Rockport, there's West Gloucester. I don't know if that's in. I mean, so everything along the MBTA,
I think
every
there's about 175 communities that are involved in this, so it's
and,
not just Gloucester.
and they will need to
And
build.
there's I
Sorry.
know there's 69 commuter rail communities
Okay.
that they need to build. They need to zone, not build.
Oh, right. Exactly.
Let's back up even further. It's not about requiring cities and towns to build, it's
Right.
to zone.
Right. So they just have to change their zoning to allow this, right?
Right. But the caveat is it's by right zoning.
Right.
So in other words, if you come in with a multifamily project in one of these zones, the city can't say no, but they can, if you already get into the weeds of the law, they can do a site plan review to see where the driveways are. They have some control, but not as much as if under local zoning. So
So
what?
going forward, but the mayor is actually looking backward, and he's saying, "Whoa! If we have to comply with this mass zoning law, we better get a master plan for the whole city reinstated, right?"
And I think that's pretty smart, because we've gone through a housing zoning discussion that was very contentious and controversial um, over the last year. And most of those zoning articles, such as 3-family by right, were shot down. It was a lot of discussion. It was a lot of effort on people's behalf, a lot of meetings, a lot of public input, but at the tail end of everything. So I think it seemed like they put the cart before the horse.
Mm.
They came before everybody with these zoning amendments, and people were trying to figure out what they would mean. So I think the mayor is saying, okay, if we have to plan for a multifamily district in Gloucester like this, it's time to look at the master plan for the city.
Mm.
It's the
But
same work.
in defense of all the people in the council who are working with all that zoning, there was a plan and a really well thought out studied plan done in advance of that. And they were, I can't remember the name of that plan. And the city council was always referencing that work when they were trying to make their decisions about these zoning changes, right?
There was a 2017 housing production plan.
That's the one. Thank you.
So, yeah, so I think a lot of the work that was not for, that zoning discussion was not about affordable housing. It was just ways to create more housing.
Mhm.
What are the opportunities to do that? And the planning board came up with some ways to do it through zoning, but people, had concerns. I mean, I worked, not, on Whittemore Street. It's very workforce housing here. It's very congested. It's hard to get down, drive down this, two cars to drive down the street.
Mhm.
So you could see where the pushback was. There wasn't that kind of overall zoning look. So maybe you have both these processes going together. Maybe that will give a little bit more public input and some idea of how this can work. But there is,
I'm going.
but I mean, I did sense pushback at the council during the council meeting on Tuesday night. You can watch it, where some of the councilors, Jeff Worthley, Tracy O'Neill, were kind of asking, well, why do we have to comply with this at all?
Mm.
We don't create the zone, so we're not eligible for 3 state grant programs, two of whom the city may not have qualified for or ever gotten a grant. So the notion of whether Gloucester can comply or will comply is something that's going to be discussed. But to the mayor, he's got 4 months to come up with an initial action plan. And then they have another year and a half to create the zoning. They'll have to do zoning. There's no zoning in Gloucester that just allows you to build a multifamily building by right.
So wait, hold on. Let's go back a little bit, because I did think I read in your article that the state said, basically, you have to comply. This is not, there's no opt-out option here, right?
Well, it's a state law.
Yeah, but they're saying if you don't comply, you will not be eligible for this funding, certain funding. But in fact, the state said at a recent meeting, no, you actually have to do this. I mean, municipality, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is not an optional situation.
it's not optional but then what the state can't arrest Gloucester if they don't create the zoning. I mean, it's a fine point, MBTA communities must, shall. I mean, I think it's prudent for the mayor to go through the steps to come up with a plan. Eventually, we probably go before the planning board to try to craft some zoning, and then it's up to the council to accept that zoning. We saw what happened during the last debate, so it could be that the majority of the council says we reject this zoning.
Mhm.
It's gonna be interesting how it plays out. It's gonna get very political, unfortunately, but it's a planning exercise in trying to get more housing into Gloucester.
All right, so I'm quoting Verga in your article, and he says, Mayor Verga, now as it stands now, we are not compliant with this law. When this began, it seemed like it was a choice and opt-in. I think the secretary made it very clear, the Housing and Economic Development Secretary, Mike Keneally, during the presentation on the 8th, September 8th, that this is a mandate, it's required, it's a shall, it's a must. Fill in any of those words you want. So, that, yes, it sounds like there's wiggle room, but the city has to do it. And it's just a plan. It's just changing the zoning, right?
It's zoning.
Yeah.
It's creating a district. Now, whether developers take advantage of that, whether developers can take advantage of that, because you could create the zoning district, but if maybe there's not enough land to actually build all this stuff, it's like, hey, we think this is the zone. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be a very interesting discussion, and I'm only being the devil's advocate because this is the kind of the discussion at the council level where the council Worthley is sort of questioning the whole idea that if this is a guidance or this is a mandate. So you can sort of see the thinking on some in the council that maybe if Gloucester just doesn't do it, what really can the state do other than restrict them from those programs. Now, there's a caveat here. So if you're a housing choice community, now I don't think Gloucester is a housing choice community, or I don't know if they're building a lot of affordable housing or whatever it is. But Newburyport became a housing choice community, and because it was a housing choice community, it didn't get a grant, but it made it eligible for other funds.
So
So when
define
you
housing choice.
qualify for these programs, Gloss qualifies for housing choice. They become eligible for other state money. So it's not just the housing choice money.
Mhm.
And that's how Newburyport got its bulk, got funding for its bulkhead.
Oh, so,
That's the caveat. You comply with these state rules and it opens up grants elsewhere.
right. So what's the timeline? I think I interrupted you on the timeline. You're about
Oh,
to.
no, that's okay. It's a very confusing process. The state doesn't make anything easy.
Yeah.
The city has until the end of January 2023. We're coming up to 2023
Yeah, I
to get an
know.
action plan, which is this is how we're going to go about it. And then it
And
would have another 2 years or to craft the zoning or to create the multifamily district. And the
mhm,
mayor's saying, in the meantime, let's come up with a master plan. Let's update a 22-year-old document.
right.
Makes
Well,
sense.
it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. All right. Anything else we should know about that whole process right now?
I'm not looking forward to it. Let me tell you that. I am
Yeah, I
not
think you're
looking forward to that.
probably.
I lived zoning. I'm still not over that.
I think it's not going away, and I think you have a lot of company in that place of zoning discomfort.
Zoning
Um,
discomfort. That's a preparation H. Zoning discomfort.
Zoning discomfort. All right, let's talk about a nice story. That not that zoning isn't a nice story. Change can be good, but the Wildwood Gardens agriculture, little A, big C project that has just broken ground.
Yeah, and no, so a lot of things are still new to me in Gloucester. Um, so I got to go to Wildwood Gardens yesterday, see the groundbreaking. Now, what happened was I guess in 2017, great group backyard growers,
Mhm.
which is encouraging kids in schools and others to grow their own food. It's great. Um, this is what they do, and they had created a community garden. They've created community gardens at the Gloucester Housing Authority properties.
Mhm.
So now they're 2017, they create a community garden. So everyone gets their tub or their plot to grow food,
Mhm.
but they want to expand it. And the Gloucester Housing Authority saw that this community garden at Wildwood Gardens, aptly named,
Mhm.
um, create a community there, a very diverse community. 7 or 8 languages are spoken. Low income, about $24,000.
Yeah.
So it's it's these people they're struggling, good people, and this is a great amenity. And now they want to expand it by creating a space for them to gather.
Excuse me, but I love that point that you make in your story about how people were siloed and basically until these gardens were installed. And the gardens are places where everyone can really come together, come out of their apartments and be together. And, well, not intentionally, but accidentally, they're weeding next to each other and they're picking their cherry tomatoes. That's a really nice point.
Yeah, now Mr. Holden of the Gloucester Housing Authority uh, had made that point that this really created a community, and it was people were just doing their own thing. And one of the things that they reiterated was it was the kids, it was the children who saw backyard growers and got involved, and then they got their parents involved. So it was really from the kids. So about 2 years before the pandemic, they came up with an idea for a community gathering space. Then they got this opportunity from the Essex County Community Foundation and their Creative County Initiative, which is an initiative that kicked off a few years ago. They got a Essex County Community Foundation got a large grant from the Barr Foundation to spur public art projects on the North Shore in Essex County.
Hmm.
So they came up with this idea. Let's expand on this community garden. And what do the residents want? A gathering space. But the pandemic hit, things got delayed, and the project went through several iterations, or it morphed. So now we're talking about a nice triangular shaped pavilion, I wish I got a rendering. It must look great. Planters all around, a stage, benches.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's shaded so people can be out in their gardens or
exactly.
come in and get some
Exactly.
shade. Yeah,
I mean,
nice.
this lot, it's not a big lot.
Yeah.
The grass, it's like it's all crabgrass. It really needs a lot of work. Needs some TLC, and this will be a great amenity for this neighborhood.
Mm.
Why not gathering space for people? And unlike the community gardens where people have their own plot, growing their own food, they're going to grow stuff for the community. So
Oh,
perennial vegetables. So I want some herbs. I can just take my
yeah.
herbs.
Oh, that's
You know?
great. Yeah.
So it's a buy-in by the community, and there's a lot of moving parts in this. Um, an art studio full was the artists in residence that helped come in, do charrettes or workshops with the
Hmm.
community.
Hmm.
Um,
Wait, what do you mean by that? What do
they
you?
actually had and I think it was either last year or this year. Uh, they got about 50 of the residents together and said, "What do you want to see here?" They did like planning. The kids
Yeah.
uh, painted some benches and got some chalk and drew. In other words, they brought the community together. They didn't just say, "Hey, this is what we're going to give you."
Yeah. Right. Right. Nice.
So
One of the things,
yeah,
well, I spoke to Allison DeFiore who's the executive director of the Backyard Growers last week. And one of the things she talked about was an area for little kids to play so their parents can work in the gardens because if those kids aren't occupied, the parents are, pulling them out of the dirt and those kids are picking all the food and the tomatoes before when no one's looking. So it's a little less chaotic that way.
yeah, no, it's a great idea. A little play space for the toddlers,
Yeah,
while their parents are gardening,
right.
our siblings are gardening. So yeah, and I think there's a lot of things. Building center is
Yes.
contributed to this. The Greater Cape Ann Chamber of Commerce is a partner and sort of rounding up some of I think the partners, Arania, I think it's Aranio, Landworks is
Oranio.
Aranio
Yeah.
is doing this, is going to do the landscaping. And then now I'm going to blank on this one, but there's a local nonprofit that's going to work with youth.
Yes.
And
This is a new nonprofit and yeah, and the teens are going to help build it, right?
yeah. So it's I gotta cheat here, but
Go
no,
ahead, go ahead.
but what I like about it is it brought a lot of people together. When I went to the groundbreaking, there's all these people here. I'm like, they just want to build a garden,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's really nice. So find the name of that nonprofit.
Oh no, I can't. I'm just,
Oh, okay.
that's it.
Okay. Well,
I'm trying to read on the fly,
yeah, I'll try to put it in the notes, but no, but it's a new one and I had written it down when I interviewed Allison, but it's great. And the contributions were wonderful.
Ah,
Um,
this is why I couldn't. The Cornerstone Creative, and they work with youth. They work with young people. So I guess here's another connection. Young people will be coming in and building the pavilion.
yeah, yeah,
So it's just a really cool project.
yeah,
And it's not, they didn't just expand the community garden and put in more plots.
right. But they did that too. They did that at the Burnham Field.
They did.
Right.
That's proved successful as well.
Right, exactly. They're just breaking ground everywhere that backyard growers.
And why not do a public art? We always talk about public art project on the boulevard, you
Mhm.
know, at the beaches, whatever. So this is a little neighborhood, and they get a really cool amenity. Why not?
No, it's useful, it's productive, and apparently it's going to be pretty too, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be cool.
Artistic. So let's talk about a favorite subject, those piping plovers. I say plover, you say plover, right? We don't know which it
I
is.
don't know now what I say.
Well, you can choose one, but they
Plover,
pipe.
plover.
Have you heard them pipe?
Yes, I've heard them only through Kim Smith, the Piping Plover Ambassadors video. So really, if you want to go, I think you can go on YouTube and Google her. and watch hip hop in action.
Yeah.
These ambassadors had a great year. They had 7 eggs, and they had 5 chicks fledge. So they lost one, but this breeding pair keeps coming back year after year. These plovers, they're threatened species.
Yeah.
And the mom came back this year. Last year, she had some trouble with some monofilament on her foot, wrapped around her foot. And this year, she came back with 1 foot and had 4 chicks, 4 eggs, laid 4 eggs, and they all hatched.
Mother of the Year award there.
Super mom.
Yeah,
They
she's
called
a
her
super
super
mom.
mom. And then one of the chicks was hip hop. He may still be on the, I don't know, maybe he's gone. They're so cute. These little tiny shorebirds.
Wait, tell
And
us about hip hop.
hip hop has a lame leg, injured foot,
Mhm.
and he's slow to develop, but he did learn to fly. So he's just a little bit behind
Mhm.
the his siblings. These birds go down to the Bahamas. They go all the way down to the Bahamas and come back. That's where they go. They only learned that very recently.
We only learned that they go to the Bahamas.
Yeah,
Oh,
there was an expedition, I think an Audubon expedition. They only learned this very recently. These birds were killed for their plumage. Ladies' hats would have like a little bird in it,
yeah. Oh, a
and then
whole
they
bird?
start that. Yeah, a full bird, little bird.
The little piping plover on your hat? Oh my gosh.
And that was the fashion. So there was a big trade in bird plumage, and then they had a Migratory Bird Act. Don't quote me on all of this, but then the birds sort of come back, and then we have World War II. People hanging out on the beaches with their off-road vehicles, and they like to nest. Where do the plovers like to nest? They put in a divot in the sand.
Where the tires go.
Yeah, so
Right.
and then trash, landfills
Mm,
brought a lot of seagulls to the area. Seagulls are normally out to sea. Now they're running around our beaches.
yeah, right.
And the great black-back gull likes to feed on plover eggs. So
Is that our good American seagull out there?
I don't know which one it is, but it shouldn't be here. They're not. They're kind of not an invasive species, but they attract. So don't leave trash at the beach. It attracts gulls.
Yeah. Visiting gulls that we don't want. Yeah, more gulls. Yeah. And tell us what the ambassadors actually do.
I think their role. I don't know if their role is misconstrued or not, but they're just public information. People at the beach, you know, give the plover some space. They're a threatened species. There's not that many left in the world, and they're really cute.
Yeah.
They just happen to nest on beaches that we like to hang out on.
Yeah, and it's really hard to keep the dogs, the people, the machinery out of there. So
Exactly.
how many piping plovers do we have?
Well, she mentioned there was about 7,000. Could be more. Massachusetts, she said about 1,000 nesting pairs. So we're kind of ahead of the curve in
Oh,
trying to preserve it. I mean, of course, Plum Island closes its beaches, and there's others around Crane Beach. I did speak with David Rimmer of Greenbelt
mhm.
briefly. He didn't wind up in the story. He said that they didn't show up at Coffin's Beach in Gloucester this year. So it's really Good Harbor Beach, this
So do they
beautiful,
go
popular
to
beach.
to Plum Island and Cranes Beach?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. All right.
yeah.
But
Those are the other places where they, look out for them.
yeah, yeah.
But the other beach in Gloucester where they've been seen before was East Coffin's Beach, and
Mhm.
they didn't, not this year. So, but Good Harbor had a good year.
Okay. Well,
And they didn't have to buy parking passes. That's the other thing. The plovers are not required to get beach stickers.
I hope they
That's
know.
vital.
I hope they know how lucky they are.
They are.
Well, they have ambassadors too. And
Exactly.
they kind of have little crowns on their heads, I think, basically.
Well, they do. It's great work.
Yeah.
It's not easy to try
No.
to keep a species going. Right?
Famous last words that from Ethan Forman. Thank you. It's
Thank
not
you.
easy to keep a species going.
Oh no.
All right. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.
All right, Heather. Thank you very much.
Bye, Ethan. Thank you.
Bye.
Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor@1623studios.org to learn more.